By 1989, Gorbachev was determined to loosen Soviet control over the nations in the communist bloc. Gorbachev told the peoples of Eastern Europe that they had the right to choose their own futures. But his listeners wondered what would happen if non-communists won power. Would the Soviet Union really stand aside?
Gorbachev was convinced that when these countries got their freedom, they would choose socialism with a human face. He believed they would not turn away from Moscow, nor run off to the West. He thought they would be grateful to Moscow and keep up ties of friendship with the Soviet Union.
Only Honecker seemed to notice nothing amiss. On the eve of East Germany's 40th anniversary that October, he was confident as he waited with his colleague Egon Krenz to greet his senior guest, Mikhail Gorbachev. The Soviet delegation already knew that the East German regime was tottering. The outward show of victorious celebration went ahead. Then, at the torchlight parade of communist youth, the marchers dropped their rehearsed slogans. They began to chant another name, Gorby. Honecker pretended not to notice.
These were specially chosen young people, strong and good-looking. They were in a cheerful mood, but they started chanting slogans. Gorby, help us. Gorby, stay here. Rakowski, the Polish leader, came up to us and said, "Do you understand German?" I said, "I do a little bit." "Can you hear?" I said, "I can." He said, "This is the end." And that was the end. The regime was doomed.
On November the 9th, 1989, Günter Schabowski told journalists in Berlin that restrictions on travel to the West would be lifted. The government meant the change to start next day, but Schabowski mistook the timing.
Bitte? Ab sofort. Also Genossen, mir ist hier also mitgeteilt worden, dass eine solche Mitteilung heute schon verbreitet worden ist. Sie müsste eigentlich in Ihrem Besitz sein. Das tritt nach meiner Kenntnis ist das sofort. Unverzüglich.
The news flashed round the city. East Berliners rushed to see if the checkpoints in the wall were really opening. The border guards were baffled.
We didn't get any instructions from our superiors. None. Only observe the situation. We tried many times to speak to our superiors, but nobody got back to us. You have to bear in mind that our soldiers were fully armed on this day, as always, and they had one order.
That order was to stop anyone trying to escape, but the crowds were huge now. Suddenly, the guards gave in. They opened the barriers.
They opened the borders and didn't take any countermeasures. They didn't consult me or get my approval.
Die hat mich angerufen nach der... Das ist ein wunderschöner Tag.
Auf einmal
I found myself in a group of people who were applauding. I didn't understand right away why. Then I realized I really was in West Berlin, and West Berliners had come to the border and they were applauding us. We were all crying and embracing each other. Even now, when I look back, my heart is racing. It was so moving.
Bekannte, die wollen wir besuchen, die warten um 12 Uhr.
Wir wollen mal rüber.
Nur mal gucken. Das ist traumhaft. Und dann wieder zurück. Wann? Ne, heute irgendwann. Oder, also besser gesagt, doch heute.
Wahnsinn!
Wahnsinn! Was zu toll. Das ist toll.
28 Jahre, das ist die Stunde. Super, ich bin sehr glücklich.
West Berliners arrived from the other direction. They began to demolish the wall in front of the Brandenburg Gate.
Also die Idee, auf der Mauer herumzuhacken, die kam irgendwie, das war so ein
There was a common idea. Now we have to get rid of the wall.
Diese Werkzeuge kamen ja aus der Gruppe und
everybody had different reasons.
Jetzt müssen wir die Mauer wegkriegen. Und jeder hatte wahrscheinlich andere.
For me, it was that I had relatives on the other side who couldn't come over.
Man kannte, dass man eben nicht, wie man wollte, zusammenkommen konnte. Oder wenn ich an meine Tante denke.
When I remembered my aunt and how I couldn't see her before she died, it made me so angry. It was liberating to do something against the wall.
Der Kommunismus ist gestorben. Wir nehmen das mit rüber. Die SPD ist tot. Ja, wir nehmen das mit rüber. Lebt doch noch. Ja, da haben wir mit so eine Zähne.
It was emotional for me, but I must confess that I had in mind not overreacting. The stupidest thing that any president could have done then would have been going over there, danced on the Berlin Wall, and stick his fingers right into the eyes of the Soviet military and of Gorbachev. Now, who knows how they would have had to react.